Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds for Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month was Climbing Interest Rates Taking a Toll on the Market. This is our October show reporting on the September activity at the Registry of Deeds. We'll also, in the second segment, getting into an issue coming before Plymouth Town Meeting. And we have some great guests talking about the use of CPA money, community preservation money, to preserve buildings on Town Square in Plymouth, and have Bill Keohan, Lee Filson of the Mayflower Society, and Donna Curtin, who's the chair of the 1749 Courthouse Committee, discussing that project. It will also be highlighting some of Plymouth County's great history. So first you're going to see is a bar chart of deeds, which is sales of property for the month of October. There were 880 deeds recorded in September, less than the 1196 recorded in August, down 5% from the 1,000 deeds in September 2017. And for the first 9 months of calendar year 18, we're even with last year. And clearly, there's an impact going forward. We've had 3 interest rate increases by the Federal Reserve this year, 8 overall, and we're beginning to see an impact on real estate sales. Mortgages have had that impact for a while because when the rates went up, refinancing of mortgages dropped off significantly. People are still taking out mortgages to purchase property. And in fact, there were 1,542 mortgages recorded in September, less than the 1,919 in August, down 19% compared to last September. And for the first 9 months of the year, we're down 8% in mortgage recordings over last year. Foreclosures continue to be something we follow, although not quite as big a problem as it was a few years ago as we came out of the 2008 meltdown. There were only 44 foreclosure deeds recorded in September, more than the 41 in August, 17% less than the 53 last September, and for the first 9 months of the calendar year, down 18%. Foreclosure notices, which are the first document we see that shows an individual is in trouble, having trouble paying their mortgage and have started down the foreclosure path, is also very low, thankfully. Only 45 foreclosure notices in September, down from the 71 in August, also down significantly over the last few years. You're going to see a listing of foreclosure orders of notice and deeds for all of the 27 communities in Plymouth County. Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham continue to be the communities most beset by foreclosure problems. I will say our free training room is open to the public next on Thursday, November 8th at 9 o'clock. Please call in advance. It's an on-hands training session, how to navigate our site efficiently. We now have the ability to record land court documents over the internet. We've had that practice for about 10 years on the recorded side, so that's another big customer convenience thing going forward. So my guests in the next segment of the show, as I mentioned at the outset, Donna Curtin from the 1749 Courthouse Committee, Lee Filson from the Mayflower Society, and Bill Keohan from the Plymouth CPA Committee, discussing a town square project. We'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. We have a very special show today. Normally in this show we have title examiners, we have realtors, surveyors, anyone involved in the real estate community talking about what's going on in the real estate market. But because there is a very special event coming up within the town of Plymouth, at what is a very sacred spot in America, I have three wonderful guests today to talk about that. I have Lee Filson, welcome Lee, who is the former Governor General of the Mayflower Society. I have Bill Keohan, Chairman of the Plymouth CPA Committee. And I have Donna Curtin, Chair of Plymouth's Committee of the 1749 Courthouse, who's also the Executive Director of Pilgrim Hall. So welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you, John.
So Bill, it's a town meeting issue that's coming up. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, well, Saturday is town meeting,
Yeah.
and the Community Preservation Committee, which is in charge of recommendations to town meeting on the use of the Community Preservation Fund, is making two article recommendations on our town square. The committee has been looking at this location for some time. We recognize its great significance not only in the history of Plymouth, but our county and our state and our country, meaning that this location is probably one of the most significant longitudes and latitudes in American history, meaning when the original separatists arrived here in Plymouth, they came with their Mayflower Compact, and they came up on this hill and they built a meeting house. And from there, they acted out the principles in that document, which states they're gathering into the body politic, which is the first time in Western civilization you see references to one man, one vote since ancient Greece. So it was a very significant moment in American history, and they built a meeting house in 1621. It was followed by a second meeting house in 1680 and a third meeting house in 1744. Finally, in 1831, they built a fourth meeting house, and around 1834, there's a separation of church and state in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and at that point, the government of Plymouth leaves that building and goes to the 1749 courthouse. They're in that courthouse until 1953. They moved to 11 Lincoln Street, and in 2017, after CPA funds and town meeting approved the restoration of the 1820 courthouse, the town hall moved to that location in November of 2017. The fifth meeting house was built as a result of a fire when, in the late 1890s, the fourth meeting house burnt down and we rebuilt a new meeting house. And that's the meeting house we see today. And the Community Preservation Committee has been focused on this location because our town bell is up in the belfry. We were working on restoring the Tiffany stained glass windows. But what we were confronted with was a dilemma on the facade. We're recommending CPA funds used to fix the facade, repoint it, and it's flashing to keep the weather out of the building. The Mayflower Society has engaged in agreement with the Unitarians to take over the building as a museum, and that was one of our major dilemmas between the separation of church and state and using CPA funds. Now that it's a museum, we can move forward with its restoration. But it's an overall comprehensive effort of looking at our town square, looking at this building. The other article we have is the putting money towards the restoration, preservation, and rehabilitation of the 1749 courthouse sitting in town square. So we're very excited about what we're proposing to town meeting. We think it is an opportunity to refocus attention on this location in Plymouth as we get ready for 2020.
So Plymouth has used its community preservation money very well over the years. Our connection to this particular project is twofold. One, every single document that is recorded at the Registry of Deeds has a surcharge on it that is a community preservation surcharge. We collect it, we send it to the state, that gets into their pool that they distribute out into the communities. And secondly, a lot of those sites you're talking about were sites where the Registry of Deeds records were kept.
Correct.
Over the years. So clearly, this has a great connection to what we've done
Right.
over the years, and I just think it's a fantastic thing to do in preparation for the 400th celebration.
Yeah. The meeting house moving from a church to a museum, in many ways it's coming home. It's coming home to the town of Plymouth where we once met as a community. It's coming home to Mayflower Society. They have a long connection to the property in support of it over the years. So in many ways we feel like this is reuniting with the community as a meeting house.
And Lee, would you like to add something from your perspective?
John, the General Society of Mayflower Descendants is really very, very excited about this project because we plan in perpetuity to make this a wonderful educational center where the story of the Mayflower Pilgrims and the Wampanoag Nation and the story of Plymouth itself can be told forever to anyone who comes to visit. We plan to spend about another $8 to $10 million after the building has been made weather tight to bring it into a wonderful facility that should serve the entire community.
Well, that's a great connection. So Donna, your committee and you are responsible for the upkeep and future progress of a 1749 building?
Yes, that is the town of Plymouth's own municipal museum right there in historic Town Square. And we have a small committee that looks after the exhibitions there. And a couple years ago, we received a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to do an architectural conservation survey of the building. And that gave us a heads up. There were some concerns coming down the line, and one of them was the situation of the roof on that building. Because underneath the asphalt that was put on that building in 1970 is one of the most remarkable timber frames that we have in Plymouth County and really in all of New England and maybe even the country. The remains of an earlier government building dating from the 17th century in Plymouth, the old colony house or county house, was retained over time as the local government switched from one building to the next and incorporated into this 18th century courthouse. So when you walk into the courtroom upstairs on the second floor, above your head are timbers that housed members of early Plymouth colony as they went about the government of the town. But one of the important things that our committee has always felt about our application for the CPC was it really was an important investment in Plymouth in Town Square. That location is so central to our residents and to visitors that are coming as they try to understand the history of this community. And they come up Leiden Street and they go along the banks of Town Brook and they come to this place where you have this wonderful concentration of historic buildings with the church buildings that are there, the Church of the Pilgrimage building on one corner, the 1749 courthouse. And the anchor point of that is the Memorial Meeting House, the Pilgrim Memorial Meeting House, which is just a stunning, stunning late 19th century arts and crafts building that resonates with our local history. So we see our project as being important for the 1749 courthouse building, but it's also an important investment with both of these projects together in making Town Square in the condition that it should be as we prepare for 2020.
And I know the courtroom itself is so historic and has so many famous jurists and attorneys that were in that particular space.
That space is just, for me, amazing to be in. When you think you had John Adams, who attended many court meetings of the court there, and also in 1766, John Adams and Robert Treat Paine together called a meeting to discuss what the response to the Stamp Act should be in Plymouth. And they, right there in that room, right there in our historic Town Square, really had one of those early conversations that helped to start the American Revolution on its way.
And so Bill, as chair of the CPA, you're kind of the quarterback in this whole thing, bringing everyone together.
Yeah, well, it's something that we're very passionate about as a committee. We've been looking at 1749 courthouse and how we could help for nearly 10 years, 12 years with the meeting house. This is a result of those discussions over a period of time. But this spring we had a storm in March and part of the roof was blown off, which then moved us into a discussion about what we needed to do with the roof. This led to a discussion about its windows and its doors and its siding. And that's what the CPA funding will be utilized for. We're going to be focusing on the exterior envelope of the 1749 courthouse. The town has money that they've set aside for improving the heating and electrical and cooling systems, because we'd like to see the museum utilized to do more displays of historical documents that we have. The town has recently hired an archivist, Connor Anderson, who's going through the town documents, finding interesting conversations and correspondence with the Continental Army about the Revolution War, and Plymouth's commitment to that. It would be great to have those on display, but right now with the building without a heating and cooling system to allow those displays, we're unable to show those documents. Hopefully with these repairs, we can expand the type of displays that we have in this building. But it's a building that has survived time. It was slated for demolition in the late 1950s and 60s during the urban renewal on that side of town, when nearly 187 homes from the 18th and 17th century were taken down. This building was saved. So this building is kind of, it's had 9 lives, and it's been recycled many times, and it has survived. And now it's before us, this generation of Plymouthians, to look at the building and make a decision what we need to do to preserve it into the future. So we're very excited about both of these buildings going to town meeting and having this discussion.
So the great thing about CPA money, it's already accessible money.
Yeah, so we have, the CPA was passed in the year 2002 in Plymouth. So these recommendations at town meeting are not raising taxes. We have decided to incorporate the Community Preservation Act in Plymouth. The money is collected. Now we're discussing how we're going to spend the money. And that's what this discussion at town meeting will be.
That's great. So could you just give a quick description for our viewers of what the Mayflower Society is and does?
Well, the Mayflower Society has been around since 1897. It was formed at the same time that the New York Society, which was one of those groups that came together, was literally raising money to build the meeting house. And they also put Tiffany stained glass windows in the meeting house as well. We were formed at that time to do 2 things. One is to keep track of people who have lineage to the Mayflower Pilgrims, and secondly, to educate the entire country and the world about the Mayflower story. In 1941, we bought the Mayflower Society house, which is actually the old Winslow house. It was a beautiful mansion on North Street, right off of Winslow Street, that was built by the great-grandson of Pilgrim Edward Winslow, who escaped to Canada because he was a Tory. But the house then was bought. It was rebuilt into a beautiful mansion that then later went into disrepair. It was slated to be demolished. And the Mayflower Society in 1941 bought it, preserved it, repaired it, and have maintained it and made it its national headquarters. And so you can now visit that as well and see the beautiful gardens behind. So from that day forward, in Plymouth proper, we have built the society into 53 different member societies in the United States, Europe, and Canada.
So it's really exciting for you and your members to be part of this project.
It is beyond exciting. We feel it's such a responsibility to our ancestors to see that the building is kept up beautifully and used to help to tell their story where they once stood themselves.
That's great. And Donna, a little bit about Pilgrim Hall. I know it is the oldest continuing operation museum in the United States, if that's true. Or am I exaggerating?
Well, no, I think we would accept that claim. That's my other hat.
Yes.
Aside from the 1749 Courthouse Museum, but I am the director of Pilgrim Hall Museum, and it was founded when Plymouth was celebrating its 200th anniversary back in 1820. The Pilgrim Society founded, and their first goal was to build a museum because they recognized that this community had tremendously deep historical resources that they wanted to ensure would be protected and preserved. So just as the Mayflower Society has preserved some important buildings in town and hopefully will help to preserve another, the Pilgrim Society has preserved the artifacts, furnishings. We also have some documents, John, that rival maybe a little bit some of the ones in your keeping at the registry. And it has been our task to care for those and to display them to the public. So our museum welcomes about 30,000 visitors a year, between 30 and 40,000 visitors a year. And at the other end of town, we have the 1749 Courthouse Museum, which is run by the town and open free to the public we usually open in June through October, and they welcome about 10,000 visitors a year to that site. This year there were over 10,000 visitors to that site. And it's a wonderful, charming museum that looks at the scope of Plymouth history and the uses of that particular building too, which we talked a little bit about its history as a courthouse, but it was used for many different purposes by the people of Plymouth. It's where the fire department was once located. They once had schools that could meet there and gather there. It was even used as a temporary mortuary when the Brig General Arnold went down in a heavy storm at the time of the American Revolution, and they had to bring the bodies ashore, and they brought them to the courthouse floor and laid them out. And for many, many years, the funerals that took place up on Burial Hill, the burials, were operated out of that courthouse building. The sexton worked there for 50 solid years attending burials, and we still have the hearse that he used in the museum.
That's incredible.
So we have tremendous riches here, I think, right there in downtown Plymouth.
Well, it's pretty unique to have two town committees working with a private society to promote something going before a town meeting. I don't know that I've seen this before across Plymouth County, so I congratulate all three of you for coming up with the concepts and the ideas and actually getting it into a form for action. Yeah. So Bill, do you want to just sum up what is going before the voters this Saturday morning?
Well, I'd like to make a special recognition to the Unitarian Church.
Sure.
They have maintained a covenants at this location for 400 years. For them to decide to turn the building over to a museum was a very difficult decision. But they recognize the historical significance of this location as it relates to Plymouth, as it relates to the Commonwealth and the country. It's a historic location, and they were unable to find the funds to restore it. They had done a great deal of research on how to restore it. So we are very thankful for the Unitarians for coming to this conclusion, and we're very excited to partner with Mayflower Society and the 1749 Courthouse, because what we've learned over time is that if you're going to propose this to town meeting, you better partner with someone that can get the ball over the goal line. And both entities have shown that in the past. So we're very comfortable and excited about Saturday and making these presentations.
So could you just share your contact information in case anyone sees this for further information about the use of the CPA?
Yes, so if you are interested in the Community Preservation Act, you can reach out to 508-789-5012 directly to the Community Preservation Committee, or you can contact Plymouth Town Hall at 508-747-1620. Our information is on the town website for the town of Plymouth.
Great. Thank you. I wish you luck. It's sacred ground. Let's hope it's treated as such.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He does the work of two jobs, but only gets paid for one. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
So thanks again to Bill, Lee, and Donna for their description about their CPA potential project to renovate Town Square in advance of the Plymouth 400 scheduled events. It's a great use of community preservation funds, and hope they're successful. This segment of the show, we always try to do something a little lighter in nature, some of our great Plymouth County history. So holidays in October, it is observed as Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The Columbus Day holiday was the 8th, United Nations Day on the 24th, and of course Halloween on the 31st. And we're going to talk about a few of our notable land records. First, you're going to see Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison had property in Brockton where he did electrical experimentation. He was a world-famous inventor that chose Brockton because it was a modern city at its time. The Edison Electric Illuminating Company bought a building bordered by School Street, Montello Street, and Lincoln Street, and began experimentation. In 1883, he threw a switch for the first 3-wire underground system, very environmentally friendly and very protected from the environment. I brought that forward because there's a lot of discussions these days with hurricanes all around America, and certainly the problems we saw up in the North Shore of things that can happen in the event of disasters, natural and otherwise. And people were talking about hardening the electrical system by putting it underground. It wouldn't be something new, but it was something Thomas Edison did in Brockton over 100 years ago. And the City Theater became the first world's theater electrified by an underground system. The Brockton Central Fire Station, the nation's first electrically operated fire system and other projects that came from that. The Old Colony Planning Council is now located in the site and just a great part of Plymouth County history. I did bring forward a couple of baseball notable records because the Red Sox at this point are still going, although they've worked their way past the Yankees. When I was putting this show together, it was still up for grabs. Ted Williams was a very famous individual, one of the best players ever in the history of the Red Sox, and he owned a baseball camp in the Plymouth County town of Lakeville. He was one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. He ran this camp for many years. In 1959, he and his partner purchased the land and began the camp. He was a regular participant in it, and he spent summers fishing and hunting down in that area, as well as the camp. The town of Lakeville purchased the property. It's now the site of the Lakeville Public Library and the Senior Center, and quite a beautiful location. And last but not least, I wanted to bring a Yankee connection. We didn't have a Yankee connection, but the brother of a great Yankee, Dominic DiMaggio, the brother of Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee great, was also a great baseball player. He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. He was born as part of the family of fishermen, and his wife in San Francisco. They immigrated from Sicily. They were great players. All the family were great baseball players. Now, Dominic in particular, nicknamed the Little Professor, played his entire career for the Red Sox, and he lost 3 seasons in the war, World War II, but he's remembered for his skills. After retirement from baseball, he became a successful businessman and lived in the town of Marion. So I want to thank Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards, David Antoine and Ben Alexander here at PAC TV for allowing me to share this information with the homeowners of Plymouth County for what for most people is their most valuable asset. And we will see you next month.